Hare Krishna, Venugopal Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranams.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranams.
Hare Krishna devotees, Dandavat Pranams to all. We welcome all of you for today's morning program, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. And today we are very fortunate to have His Grace Venugopal Prabhu. And Prabhu will enlighten us on Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, 24th chapter, titled Chanting the Song sung by Lord Shiva, and verse 65. Over to you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Venkatraman Prabhu. People are still gathering. We'll start with some kirtan. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Girivaradari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Sankirtan ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, good morning, everybody. Hare Krishna. Welcome you all for today's morning's Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Sangha. We'll start with Mangalacharan. Umajnanatirandasya gnananjanashalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishnaprestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityam. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaurabhaktarunda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yatkripatamaham vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Once again, welcome all the devotees to today's Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Association. So before I start, I'd like to offer my respectful obeisances to all the assembled devotees. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo. So thank all the organizers of the Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya for giving us opportunity to daily associate together and also hear the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. And also for personally for today giving me this opportunity to share a few thoughts on Srimad Bhagavatam for my own purification. So I seek the blessings of all the assembled devotees, particularly the senior Vaishnavas, so that I can speak within my realization and alignment with Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. Hare Krishna. So I see Prabhu has already put the verse for today. So we'll start with the verse. The verse is Canto 4, Chapter 24, verse 65. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Saesha lokanati chandavego vikarshasi tvam khalu kalayanaha. Bhutani bhuteranumaya tattvo Ganavalirvayuriva Vishayaha. Prabhu, if you don't mind, can I share my screen? I have.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I had some other things also. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Sorry for that. So the word for word. Saha, that, Esha, this, Lokan, all the planetary systems, Ati, very much, Chanda Vegaha, the great force, Vikarshasi, destroys, Tvam, your lordship, Khalu, however, Kalayanaha, in due course of time, Bhutani, all living entities, Bhute, by other living entities, Anumeya Tattvaha, the absolute truth can be guessed. Ghana Avalihi, the clouds. Vayuhu, air. Iva, like. Avishyaha, unbearable. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. My dear Lord, your absolute authority cannot be directly experienced, but one can guess by seeing the activities of the world that everything is being destroyed in due course of time. The force of time is very strong, and everything is being destroyed by something else, just as one animal is being eaten by another animal. Time scatters everything exactly as the wind scatters clouds in the sky. Purport. The process of destruction is going on according to the law of nature. Nothing within this material world can be permanent. Although scientists, philosophers, workers, and everyone else are trying to make things permanent, one foolish scientist recently declared that eventually life will be made permanent through science. Some so-called scientists are also trying to manufacture living entities within the laboratory. Thus, in one way or another, everyone is busy denying the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and rejecting the supreme authority of the Lord. However, the Lord is so powerful that he destroys everything in the form of death. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 10:34, Mrityuhu sarva haras chaham. I am all devouring death. The Lord is just like death to the atheists, for he takes away everything they accumulate in the world, in the material world. Hiranyakashipu, the father of Prahlada, always denied the existence of the Lord, and he tried to kill his 5-year-old boy due to the boy's unflinching faith in God. However, in due course of time, the Lord appeared as Narasimhadeva and killed Hiranyakashipu in the presence of his son. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1:13:47, this killing process is natural. Jivo jivasya jivanam. One animal is food for another animal. A frog is eaten by a snake is eaten by a mongoose, and the mongoose is eaten by another animal. In this way, the process of destruction goes on by the supreme will of the Lord. Although we do not see the hand of the Supreme Lord directly, we can feel the presence of that hand through the Lord's process of destruction. We can see the clouds scattered by the wind, although we cannot see how this is being done because it is not possible to see the wind. Similarly, although we do not directly see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we can see that he controls the process of destruction. The destructive process is going on fiercely under the control of the Lord, but the atheists cannot see it. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udiraye Ashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. So we have this wonderful sloka for today. We are in the middle of the song sung by Lord Shiva, the Rudra Gita. And here we see an interesting thing to note. In today's verse, Lord Shiva is telling, my dear Lord, your absolute authority cannot be directly experienced. But one can guess about your absolute authority by seeing the activities of the world and how that everything is being destroyed in due course of time. So it's interesting that whom we consider as the Lord of Destruction, Lord Shiva, is actually here clearly addressing Lord Krishna and saying, you are the absolute authority and you are in fact the real controller of the process of destruction. So that's a very clear indication of how Lord Shiva, although popularly known as part of the Trimurtis, we hear that Brahma is creator, Vishnu is maintainer, and Lord Shiva is the destroyer. But here, through the lens of the Bhagavatam, we can be clear that Lord Shiva himself is stating that he is an instrument in the hands of the Supreme Lord, and that in fact it is the Lord Krishna who is actually the authority behind the process of destruction as well. And how that is happening, the Lord Shiva is going on to explain here. The force of time, through the force of time, which is also an energy of the Supreme Lord. It's also Prabhupada in some places says time is the impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord. And we also understand, when we understand the five main themes, the Bhagavad Gita, we see the five themes are the Atma or the Jivatma, the individual soul, Paramatma or Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And then we have Kala, time, Prakriti, material nature, and Karma, the laws of action and reaction. So these five themes also we see the mention of time and how the and even in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna elaborates on this concept. So that's where we have these five themes, and time is an integral part of that five main subject matter of Bhagavad Gita. So going on to the purport by Srila Prabhupada, we just try to understand some of the main points Prabhupada is trying to explain here. So the Prabhupada says the process of destruction is going on according to the law of nature. So again, as I said, law of nature is the laws of, as given in the Bhagavad Gita, we know when we understand Prakriti, we understand the concepts of the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, then also about the material nature, how it is composed of those various elements, the 24 aspects of the Sankhya philosophy. We understand how it's composed of 24 elements, and also understanding how the kleshas, Adi Devika, Adi Bhautika, Adhyatmik, these are all together some of the main concepts of the laws of nature. And when we understand these, Prabhupada is telling in one line, the process of destruction is going on according to the laws of nature. So nothing within this material world can be permanent. So according to the laws of nature, nothing, there is destruction going on, in fact, every moment. And we understand from the scriptures also. And here, Prabhupada and also Lord Shiva is explaining that how we can see that process of impermanence or destruction going on in things around us. So, like how Lord Shiva explains, just as one animal is being eaten by another animal, or we can see in every aspect of our life, there is always, at every moment, there is deterioration, be it in our own material body or in all the material things around us. So we see nothing is permanent. But still, Prabhupada says there are scientists, philosophers, workers, and everyone else are trying to make things permanent. So when he says this, he is basically saying those who do not have this understanding of how this material world is impermanent. That is, what is that verse? Dukhalayam Ashashvatam, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. This verse, Mamupetya Punarjanma Dukhalayam Ashashvatam Napnuvanti Mahatmanaha Samsiddhim Paramam Gataha. So Krishna says, after attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. So the key thing here is Krishna is saying this temporary world, which is full of miseries, Dukhalayam Ashashvatam. So that's what these scientists, philosophers fail to understand, because they do not have this transcendental knowledge. They are trying to gain knowledge through the ascending process. As we understand, when we understand the basics of receiving knowledge, we would have heard that we need to receive knowledge through the descending process and not the ascending. That is the not like how the scientists go about with their accumulation or acquiring knowledge. They try to understand the state of the knowledge at a particular time, and then they try to understand all the opinions of the experts, so-called experts in that area at this point of time, and then they try to synthesize all these and then try to bring in a little higher understanding. Now, to anybody layman, this may seem like a reasonable approach. What is wrong in this approach? Because you are trying to get the best of what is knowledge available today from past experts, and then you're trying to build upon it. But we understand that when we will not understand the fault in this process unless we understand through the eyes of scriptures, and also through life experience. It will be proved. But when we are trying to understand or early on in life, we may not have that experience, and that is where the words of Shastras really come to help us, because from the scriptures we understand that we have these 5 defects, and one of the defects is that we have imperfect senses, and also, so with imperfect senses, when we are trying to which include our mind and subtle senses, mind and intelligence also, they are not perfect. So with those imperfect means, these modern scientists are trying to gain knowledge. And for material knowledge, it may work to a certain extent, like we have seen in modern science. They have come to explain some aspects of the world around us fairly reasonably through their process. But for higher and higher understanding, one who goes higher will will in fact reach the barriers of science. In fact, many true scientists, sincere and authentic seekers in the field of science, themselves have reached that barrier, and they have concluded that they or they may, because in the field of science it is not so easy to speak this freely, but in their own personal lives they have, or in their own writings, they have accepted the inferiority of the process of this process, and they have in a way realized there is a superior for force, or no, not everybody is fortunate to understand that that superior force is Krishna, but they have that, they reach that limit through the ascending process. So Prabhupada is bringing that out here. Because of that faulty process, they try to think that it's just a matter of time before we get to perfection, and that perfection is permanence. That now some things are breaking down and they are faulty. There is destruction going on, but through our advancement in science and technology, and through our endeavors, we can beat this or defeat this phenomena. So that is the foolishness of the all the people were following that approach, and that's what Prabhupada is bringing out here. So he says, one foolish scientist recently declared that eventually life will be made permanent through science. Some so-called scientists are also trying to manufacture living entities within the laboratory, and this he spoke a few decades ago, and we can see that this is still true, all this, and it will continue to be true because we know from Shastras that this process is faulty. So that conviction, when we have, then we will know what, and we can give the due respect to this material science, but not more, so that we don't get enamored by it and think that it is the highest truth or the best method of acquiring knowledge. So thus, in one way or another, everyone is busy denying the existence of Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Prabhupada is saying, this is in a way indirectly what all these scientists, people are doing is they are denying the existence of God, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, because they feel it is just through their endeavor, which is coming up. It's a matter of just time that if not themselves, the collective endeavor of people like them, in a few years' time, we will defeat this, phenomena of destruction or impermanence. So that's the flaw in Prabhupada is highlighting. However, the Lord is so powerful that he destroys everything in the form of death. So this, it may seem a very simple sentence, and for practicing devotees who have heard this again and again, it may be, nothing new. And but if you understand from the perspective of those who are going on the other path, we see how powerful this Shastra, receiving knowledge through the descending process is, because just by the statement that how Lord destroys everything in the form of death, then we immediately can take the humble position and understand that we are subservient to a higher force, and it's not just our personal endeavor or the collective endeavor of humanity which is going to help kind of maintain everything in this world. There is a higher force, and that force is the Lord, who not only creates, maintains, but also he destroys. And when things get destroyed, that is when we sit up and take notice, because sometimes creation and maintenance we take for granted. we may not appreciate it so much. But when things get destroyed because of our attachments to those things, we take notice and we try to. There's a momentary sense of wonder why this happened, and that's where Krishna, if we have some source connection with the spiritual knowledge, we'll understand that it is really all the while it was Krishna and not me who was really in control and who was influencing all things in my life. So one gets that realization with this transcendental knowledge that Krishna is in control, and he not only controls creation maintenance, but he also controls the process of destruction and eventual destruction that we all generally one fears. The conditioned soul fears is the fear of death, because one has to give up the association with the body, which is very dear. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 10:34, Mrityu sarvaharashchaham, I am all devouring death. The Lord is just like death to the atheists, for he takes away everything they accumulate in the material world. So interestingly, like what we are sharing, that so he says Lord is just like death to the atheists. So who are the atheists? So we sometimes think only those who deny the existence of God are atheists, but they are definitely explicitly stating themselves as atheists. But this is what we understand from what people say. But we can understand that atheists have certain actions, and through the actions also one becomes an atheist, and not just by what one speaks or thinks. So what is the action? The actions in which we deny the existence of the Supreme Lord and think ourselves as controllers. Those are all subtle atheistic tendencies. And the purpose of scriptures and primarily the process of spiritual life is to overcome these tendencies, these atheistic tendencies. Because otherwise, when we read this as practicing devotees, at least this is all for myself I'm speaking, there is a tendency to think this is somebody else. Oh, atheist, somebody else. This is for that person who says he doesn't believe in God. But actually, Prabhupada is telling this to all of his, to everybody who is reading this, and which includes practicing devotees, because the process of sadhana is the process of defeating the atheistic tendencies in us. So Prabhupada is saying, just like death to the atheist, but he takes away everything they accumulate in the material world, because we all feel this. We all feel fear of death at times, fear of the unknown, fear of losing what we have strived hard to accumulate or gather. So all these, in a way, are subtle atheistic tendencies. And Lord is just like death to these. When we have these tendencies, we experience that. So I hope I'm able to express my thoughts here. Basically, I wanted to explain that the tendency for it is these atheistic tendency is nothing but being attached to matter. So Prabhupada gives the example of Hiranyakashipu, the father of Prahlada. So nice example, timely example. We are all looking forward to Lord Nrsingadev's appearance in a few days, and we have this example given by Prabhupada. So, as where he's telling, the father of Prahlad denied the existence of the Lord, and he tried to kill this 5-year-old boy due to the boy's unflinching faith in God. However, in due course of time, the Lord appeared as Nrsingadev and killed Hiranyakashipu in the presence of his son. So, basically, Prahlad is, personification of that pure devotee, the standard that we need to aspire for, because despite all the hardships that he was put into by his own father Hiranyakashipu, as a 5-year-old boy, he had unflinching faith in God. So unflinching faith in God, how it manifests in a sadhaka's life, I was trying to understand. So we can see that unflinching faith in God means unflinching faith in the words of God, words of the Shastras, words of the Bhagavatam, words of Guru, Parampara, and the Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So when we have unflinching faith in all these aspects, then we are trying to follow in the footsteps of Prahlad Maharaj. Or as mentioned in Mahabharata, which Prabhupada always quoted, Mahajana yena gatasa antaha. So we can be assured that we are trying to, we are on the path of the Mahajanas, and we are on the right path. So, so yeah, as I said, we are celebrating Nrsinga Chaturdashi this coming weekend. And since Prabhupada has mentioned Prahlad here, so as much as Nrsinga Chaturdashi is the Lord Nrsingadev's appearance festival and festival of Nrsingadev, it's also the festival of Prahlad Maharaj for devotees. So since Prabhupada has mentioned this in the purport, I thought we can just spend some time understanding Prahlad's instructions. Of course, I'm sure we are all been hearing about Prahlada and Lord Nrsingadev in preparation for the festival. Just as a reminder, particularly I wanted to remember the words of Prahlad with regard to time, because time is an important theme in this purport, the force of time, Chanda Vega, as mentioned in the sloka, Chanda Vega. So it is mentioned many places in Bhagavatam. We hear the word Chanda Vega used for time. I think later also we'll hear about the allegory of Puranjana, where Narada refers to the time factor of Supreme Lord as Chanda Vega. Chanda Vega as force of time. You would have heard this word Chanda, like Chanda Maruta, or Chanda, like the hurricane, and basically they depict force. So the Chanda Vega is the force of time, and how the time acts in our life. Lord Shiva is trying to explain in this verse. So just if we can go over some of the teachings of Prahlad Maharaj, particularly. I wanted to, so this one, in Canto 7, Prahlad Maharaj says, of course, this whole chapter is, each verse is, deep and with lot of lessons and, deep lessons for us, but particularly with respect to time. In the 6th text, Prahlad Maharaj says, every human being has a maximum duration of life of 100 years. But for one who cannot control his senses, half of those years are completely lost. Because at night he sleeps 12 hours, being covered by ignorance. Therefore, such a person has a lifetime of only 50 years. I'm just reading the translation. But basically, Prahlad Maharaj is emphasizing that time is running out. That is the kind of the alert he's giving. Time is running out to all of us. So he's substantiating that point that time is running out through this, these facts of life that he's sharing. That even if we take maximum duration, like we know in Kali Yuga, maximum is 100 years with a few outliers or exceptions, and who live little longer, but maximum is 100 years. And for one who cannot control his senses, half of those years are completely lost, because at night he sleeps 12 hours. I know practicing devotees don't sleep 12 hours, but this is to wake people up, Prahlad Maharaj, because in one way or the other, either physical sleeping or, if they are not alert to the purpose of human life, that is also as good as sleeping. So we can see he's saying sleep 12 hours being covered by ignorance. So any time during the day, if you are covered by ignorance, it is also, you can see, is actually sleeping. Therefore, such a person has a lifetime of only 50 years. Then he goes on to say, in the remainder of the 50 years, in the tender age of childhood, when everyone is bewildered, and passes 10 years. So we can see in childhood, we can see in the lives of children, it's kind of a age of bewilderment, because like time just goes, and of course they learn a lot of things, but it's a tender age, and where these one will, it's not conducive so much for higher spiritual type sadhana. So one passes 10 years, Prahlad Maharaj says. 10 years goes away like that in the tender age. Similarly, in boyhood, engaged in sporting and playing, one passes another 10 years. When you say boyhood, it means that age after 5. After 10, up to 10, he's saying where one is just engaged in playful life. And before you know it, we see one reaches 20 years. And once, and after 20 years, then Prahlad Maharaj is going into old age. Similarly, in old age, when one is invalid, he's saying, similarly in old age, when one is invalid, unable to perform even material activities, one passes another 20 years wastefully. So you see how analytically Prahlad Maharaj is trying to explain, as a 5-year-old boy, he's trying to explain to his friends, we don't have so much time. And so similarly, so he says, so the 20 years plus 20 years, we see he's given account for 40 years. And then in the next verse, he says, one whose mind and senses are uncontrolled becomes increasingly attached to family life because of insatiable lusty desires and very strong illusion. In such a madman's life, the remaining years are also wasted, because even during those years, he cannot engage himself in devotional service. So here Prahlad Maharaj is saying the last 20 years in old age, that is 80 to 100, and the first 20 years, 1 to 20. So then remain in middle, we have, again, this is an ideal case of 100 years, one who is living for 100 years max. So in middle 60 years, he says, if one is having uncontrolled mind and senses, then that is also lost or wasted, because one does not get the impetus to engage himself in devotional service. So this is the harsh truth that Prahlad Maharaj is explaining. And we can see, and in those 60 years, if you apply this to current context, one is the lifespans, although modern science and people who want us, they want to make us believe that life expectancy is increasing. When they want to sell you something, they will tell life expectancy is increasing. When they want to sell you insurance and all, they say this. But really, if you see around us, the 100 years life is, not so common. And then in that less than 100 years, we have from 20 to onwards, one gets busy making it in life, that's what we see the common path. And what that means is making it means getting lost in the material world with all the mind and senses, wherever it drags us, one gets pulled. And that's what Prabhupada Prahlada Maharaj here is telling is a madman's life. So just a reminder for myself that when we have numbers, some things, as they say, numbers are easy to drive home a point, and Prahlada Maharaj is using numbers here. He's using analytics, statistics, whatever we want to call it, to prove the point that we don't have so much time, and we need to make the most out of the time that we have in engaging in devotional service. So he says right from the first verse, just remember this one verse and we'll move on. Sri Prahlada Vacha Kaumara Acharya Pragyo Dharman Bhagavata Iha Durlabam Manusham Janma Tadapi Adrubam Artadam. So he's saying one who is sufficiently intelligent should use the human form of body from the very beginning of life, in other words, from the tender age of childhood, to practice the activities of devotional service, giving up all other engagements. The human body is most fairly achieved, and although temporary like other bodies, it is meaningful because in human life one can perform devotional service. Even a slight amount of sincere devotional service can give one complete perfection. So it's a nice verse to remember always and meditate. It emphasizing, Prahlada Maharaj is emphasizing that Durlabha Manusha Janma, the rarity of human birth, and how by engaging in devotional service. And we hear from other places where Prahlada Maharaj, when he responds to Hiranyakashipu for what he studied, he says what he heard from Narad Muni in the womb, he shares, that is the 9 processes of devotional service. So that all those 9 processes constitute devotional activity, and he is saying right from tender age. And for those of us who are not at that age, it means right from now, from the time we come to gain this knowledge, because that is when we grow up. We feel we have grown up physically, but really, if you go see the why it is emphasized that Kaumara Acharya Pragya is, if the children are ready to receive this knowledge at that age. We see many examples of how many children, it may not be with realization and full understanding as per the Shastras, but it is a good age to introduce, because over a period of time and through the life experiences, it becomes clearer and clearer to the individual soul. The words of the scriptures are true, and then there will be impetus to take deeper and deeper shelter of Supreme Lord and make the most out of the human form of life. So with that, I wanted to just, we have a few more minutes. So I'll just go back to the verse for today. Another important point Prabhupada mentions in the purport is Jivo Jivasya Jivanam. So like Lord Shiva says, we can see the force of time, how one animal is being eaten by another animal. So this is common. Many of us would have seen even in our lives, not only like in the wild, we would have probably seen, or in the movies, or in like all these Discovery Channel and all. We've seen this in action, how one animal is food for another animal. Even without that also, even at home, we see how these insects one animal insect is eating another and all. So this is very much visible in our day-to-day world around us. So with that, one can come to the conclusion, if one has the patience and intelligence to stand back and observe and reflect on these uh, these phenomena in our day-to-day life, one can easily conclude that everything is being destroyed in due course of time. That's what Lord Shiva is saying. Your absolute authority cannot be directly experienced, but one can guess. So this is what Shiva is telling. How one can guess? By seeing the activities of the world. So same, what are those activities? We can see how things are getting destroyed all around us. And one of the examples is how one animal is food for another animal. So in this way, the process of destruction goes on by the supreme will of the. So this jivo jivasya jivanam sometimes is not. It's easy to also misunderstand because many those who like particularly when in the context of and diet, this comes up and we hear this argument. Yeah, it can be misquoted. It's that yeah, one is food for the other, so animal is food for humans. So this is a common argument. Those who eat meat naturally come up with. But in the purport, that's why Prabhupada has mentioned the shloka here. If you go to the shloka, basically, Jivo Jivasya Jivanam is mentioned here in the Bhagavatam in the context of telling that the Lord arranges food for maintenance and for everybody. It is not to make the point that the stronger should eat the weaker, or it's okay. It's not like that. It is that's where if you don't have the understanding of the rarity of human form and the gift of inquiry in the human birth, we may treat ourselves as animals and use this this argument, because without spiritual life, we are it is fair to say that we are having the animalistic tendencies. And that's why many people today, we see in our day-to-day circles, we see people casually say, yeah, man is an animal, or we are all animals, because they don't know the uniqueness of the human form of life. So I just wanted to bring that up, that the Jiva Jivasya Jivanam argument, or that statement should not be misunderstood to say that it is okay to eat animals, but it's only okay for those creatures who don't have the rationalizing capacity like humans are gifted with. That is why we say in human form we can ask, who am I? What is my purpose? So these questions cannot be asked by animals, and they are just working under the laws of karma. They are playing out they are basically paying out their karmic debt. They are reducing their karma. So we know from the laws of karma that in animal life, there is no accumulation of further karma for their actions. They are just giving up the accumulated karma from the past life in that form, in that body. So that's where, but in human form, you can either devolve, go down by misusing the free will through incorrect choices, or you can rise up through spiritual practice. So here Maharaj Prabhupada quotes the explanation of Narada. So Maharaj Yudhishthira in Mahabharata, we see when his uncle, so when I think this is when Dhritarashtra leaves home, he worries for his well-being, and he becomes, and this is really morose. And then Narada consoles him, saying, that the Lord has arranged for everyone's subsistence. Prabhupada always says there is even the elephant in Africa. So many elephants are there in African forests, and they are eating so thousands of pounds of food every day. And it's already arranged. They are not working hard, endeavoring hard like like the conditioned human beings to just get their food for subsistence. So so that point is the real emphasis with Jivo Jivasya Jivanam. One is that there is Lord takes care of everyone's subsistence, and one need not over endeavor for that. So in this context, of course, it is to say that the process of destruction is going on, and how we can observe this in the animal kingdom, but very vividly. So although we do not see hand of Supreme Lord directly, we can feel the presence through the process of destruction. Again, and he gives another analogy of clouds scattered by the wind. So we see, again, as I mentioned earlier, Prabhupada says time is the impersonal feature of the Lord. Like how clouds we can visibly see, but we cannot see the wind that is moving the clouds. So, but we can see that over a period of time, the cloud which is in one place would have traveled thousands of kilometers away, and so that we can visibly see. So like that, there are many examples Prabhupada has given, like, and also we can see in our day-to-day life, like we may not observe the movement of the sun moment by moment, but over a period of time, we would have seen that he has moved a significant distance, and through the day, we can see that covered so much distance, but when we see moment to moment, we cannot perceive it. Similarly, like in our own body, we can see the changes over a period of time. We can observe it, like the growth of our hair or the nails, or even growing these indications of old age, hair turning gray, or skin becoming frail, or so all these things moment to moment we may not see, but over a period of time we can observe. So through all these things, like Prabhupada is trying to substantiate what Lord Shiva says, that one can guess that there is destruction going on in this material world all around us. So that point, that, and this destruction, who is behind this? It is you, my Lord. That's what Lord Shiva is saying. You are absolute authority. You are the absolute authority in behind the process of destruction. So, so we see even in Bhagavad Gita, just mentioned this in chapter 11. Also, Arjuna wanted like a. We hear this concept of visual learners, like this in education. We see some people are visual. They want to see. So now we see all even Maharajas using, so many spiritual masters using PPTs to explain and drive home some points from the Shastras. So this is not new. So like in chapter 11, Arjuna also asked for more clarity, and that's where we had the universal form of the Lord. Krishna showed the universal form, which is kind of the visual depiction of this verse. Basically, what he is telling is, I am the absolute authority, and the process of destruction is going on by my control. And we see from that 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, Arjuna observes all the things that are going to happen, all the destruction that's going to happen. All his relatives are, getting killed. All this is all already determined by the Supreme Lord. So that was the point Krishna was trying to drive home there through that showing his Virat Rupa, universal form. And then we see what happened in chapter 11. I'll just conclude with this. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Time I am the great destroyer of the worlds, and I have come here to destroy all people. With the exception of you, the Pandavas, all soldiers here on both sides will be slain." Basically, he said that I'm the destroyer of the worlds, and all he's trying to convince Arjuna that everything is already done, determined by me. Now you just become my instrument. That is the verse. His next verse. He says, "Therefore, get up, prepare to fight and win glory, conquer your enemies and enjoy a flourishing kingdom. They are already put to death by my arrangement, and you, O Sabyasachi, can be but an instrument in the fight," which is Nimitta Matra Bhava Sabyasachi. So we hear that often. So we can, with this, we can just take that as a lesson from this, that Krishna is eventually in control, and we can see that through all the aspects of impermanence and destruction around us in our lives, and as Lord Shiva explains here, and by being instruments in the Krishna's plan for us, it is a safe position to be in, and to navigate this otherwise scary material existence. So with that point, I'll just conclude. Some more points, but we'll pass the time. So I thank you all for your patient hearing. Please forgive me if I have told anything incorrectly, and please feel free to share your thoughts and corrections. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thanks a lot, Prabhuji, for the wonderful points that you mentioned during the class. Also, like how the Jiva Jivasya Jivanam can be misunderstood, and then you have given the scriptural point of view. It is not to justify the meat eating or these kind of things. And devotees lines are already unmuted, so they can unmute and ask any question. Maybe due to time constraint, Prabhuji, we can take one question, Prabhuji.
Sure.
Hare Krishna, Venugopal Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. It was a very wonderful class. So 3 points actually take away for me. One is the atheistic or impersonal tendencies in me. We have to consciously work on, so that we can develop that personal relationship. That is one thing with the devotees and with the Lord. And the next one is the powerful aspect of time. So that means each and every second. I think I also remember in reading somewhere else, those who are in devotional service, for them time is not going to be a factor, but who are engaged in the sense gratification activity, for them it's going to be like time is a devouring factor. So that's a wake-up call. Third one is the Jivo Jivasya Jivanam. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you very much for a wonderful class.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, that shloka is mentioned. I also have heard it. There is a mention in Bhagavata that for devotees, time energy acts differently.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranams. Thank you for the wonderful nectar. Prabhu, I really like that point when you said, that in terms of, Shiva being the destroyer, popularly known as that way, who's responsible for the destruction of various things. He himself is now, playing before the Lord and showing very clearly who is the cause of all causes. And the second aspect is, you said very nicely that, we don't give much emphasis to creation. We realize the importance only after the destruction, which is very, very important in every relationship to anything. We take for granted many things. But then when that losing happens, it's the hankering and the subsequent regret, everything starts then. Thank you for those points, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Wonderful class. In the beginning, you were telling about the scientists who created the test tube babies and all that, the dolly sheep and all that. But all that, with that cell created by the Supreme Personality, they were doing. They cannot produce the cell. Isn't it, Prabhu? So,
Yeah. Yeah, Prabhupada says, I think there's a challenge story or something I've heard, like challenge somebody to create life, and there's when they say that they create something, when they take the ingredients, it says take your own ingredients. So because this is the ingredients by God. So basically, without God's hand, creation cannot happen.
true. Dandavat Pranam, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Due to time constraint, we'll end the class here, Prabhuji, with Vaishnava Prema. Vancha kalpatarubhishya.
Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Nantapoti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Srila Gurudev ki jai, Nitai Guru. Thank you, Prabhuji, once again for the wonderful points that you highlighted. And also thanks all devotees.